Hello again. I'm going to talk about interpreting a bit more about what is the next step usually. Well, before we come to the next step, we need to say that we have talked about two steps now so far, which is the first step, which is the listening skill. And the listening skill means that you have to be very careful when listening to the person who's speaking. Make sure that you understand what they're saying. It's similar to when you are translating. You have an ST, which is, for example, the printout is not very clear, or some of the words are not printed well, or the whole document you cannot read well. It's the same with interpreting if the voice that you're listening to is not clear. For example, the microphone is not clear, they don't speak very well, and so on and so forth. So you need to make sure that you hear really well what's being said. So listening skills is essential. As I said before about when you are interpreting, if you want to hear someone, you need to make sure that you hear everything correctly. So that's why some interpreters, usually in conferences, they tend to put headphones on because they want to hear every single word that's been said very clearly. And they can adjust from their own room, from their own booth. They can adjust the volume so they can hear very well what's being said, so that when they are interpreting what they said, what the person has said, they are not actually misunderstanding what they have heard. So you need to be a good listener, and you have to listen well. You improve your listening skills. You improve the way you understand the language. You listen. You also have to understand what you're listening to. It's the same when you are translating. You read the sentence. You may understand all words in the sentence, but you don't know what they are trying to say. So you need to make sure that you understand the message, the deep meaning of the actual sentence, let's say. That is in translation. The same happens in interpreting. You need to understand what they are saying. Okay? If it's something you don't understand, you need to make sure that you understand it very well. I remember when I was doing fashion program, translating some fashion texts, it was very difficult for me to understand what fashion is about. What is a blusher in makeup, what is a lip liner, what is an eyeliner, and so on, and foundation, and so on. So I didn't know about them. I need to actually ask somebody who's expert in this, who they use it. And then later on, I become really knowledgeable in that area. So that when I am interpreting, when I'm translating, at least I know what I'm translating. What does it mean? Very, very important. So I improved my vocabulary in fashion due to that. The same here, if you are going to do interpreting in, let's say, politics, you need to understand the topic. For example, if the topic is about a very hot topic about very controversial, then you are actually in a, like if there is a war going on or dispute going on between two countries, or a discussion going on between two. I remember at one time there was an ambassador and a minister. They were sitting there, and there's an interpreter, and the ambassador has actually was given a lower chair, physically lower chair than the minister. And then he complained afterwards. But they told him, oh, because of your rank, because the minister is higher than you. You see these kind of diplomatic situations, which is very interesting. You don't realize them until you become an interpreter, to know these kind of nuances, little things that are happening behind the scenes. Also, I mean, at times, some people will reject your interpreting, and they say they don't want your interpreting. I remember once there was a young guy, he's about 19 or 20, and he speaks French and Italian, and he was and he doesn't speak English. So he was saying things in Arabic, and I was interpreting them into English to the social services at the time, and it was consecutive interpreting. And he then, after we finished the whole session, somebody from the social services came to me, and they were asking me questions about what do I think of young man in terms of the age. And I said, I really don't know. I am not an expert in knowing the age, because they were not sure if he's telling the truth that he's 21 or that he's 18. If he's less than 18, he can get money from the government at the time, and if he's higher than 18, he will not get that. So there was an issue of that from a legal point of view. And he was arguing that he's 18 or less than 18 so he can get the money, and they were arguing that he's not. So I said, well, I'm not really sure. Maybe he is not, but I don't know. I'm not an expert. Anyway, they went and passed the message to him, and he was very upset that I'd said that. And I apologized afterwards, but he didn't accept it. So you have to be very careful about these things when people are saying something and what they are saying. And of course, the ethics here are in confidentiality. You're not going to go discuss their situation with everybody else afterwards. And interpreting is just a sort of relaxed kind of time where you have adrenaline a little bit, but it's not really fundamental. And you are just saying what other people are saying, no more, no less. That's what you don't add to it, you don't remove from it, unless you know that the target language people don't understand what the idea is. Then you can always tell the first party, look, I'd like to explain that to the other party because they didn't understand. And they will say yes. Now, other situation where where there was a patient and a doctor, medical doctor, and the patient, when we walked into the room, she said to the doctor, she said, look, we don't need an interpreter. I understand English really well. And he said, that's fine. So I sat in the middle. That's what's happened, truly. I sat in the middle. I didn't interpret anything. Of course, she started. She told him what her situation, medical case. And the doctor replied to her. And after he finished his answers to her at the very end of the session, he said to her, do you have any other question to ask? She said yes. And she asked him what he has already explained to her. But she was shaking her head throughout. So the doctor assumed that she understood. But it turned out that she didn't understand anything. She understood few words, but not everything. So we had to start again the session. And I had to start from the beginning interpreting for her what she has got. The medical condition that she was in, and what the doctor is saying exactly to her, and what she's telling him, and what he's telling her in terms of instructions and various things. So it does happen that sometimes some people are very proud of themselves and they don't want you to interpret for them, which is understandable. But at the same time, you need to make sure that the communication is going on correctly. And you see here with the doctor and the patient, the communication wasn't going through correctly, and that's why the doctor thought it was going communication-wise okay, but it wasn't. So we had to start the session again. So it's basically really just passing information from one party to another in a very honest way and a very sincere way, loyal to the text and accurate to the text as much as possible. When you are in another occasion, I remember there was interpreting in court, and in the second session, the first session after we finished court interpreting, tribunal it was, in the second session, which came in the following week, because each week there's one session with this client, they saw me in the waiting room before we go into the court, and they came to me, they say, we know you are the interpreter, could you please tell the judge this and that and the other? I said, look, I can't tell the judge anything, I think it's better for you to tell the judge in the session, because I don't, and they said, do you remember last time we were talking about this? And I said to them, look, sorry, I don't remember anything, and I do not remember, really. I mean, it's not my ideas that I'm actually putting forward to the judge. It's actually ideas of these clients who are telling the judge what they want. So basically, the interpreter is not a third party here. You are communicating between individuals, and it's not up to you to tell the judge certain things and not other things. Unless the client says these things, you cannot defend them. You're not actually working as an advocate. You're not advocating. You're not defending them. And you're not defending also the judge's decision, whatever the decision is, the sentence. is. So you are in between two parties, but you are not a third party. So you do not actually get involved in any way by either part, and start defending one party and against another. What you can do is only explain their view. That's it. What they said. That's it. No more, no less. You do not put any extra, as it were, information in there which is not supposed to be in there. You need to make sure that the ideas you're hearing is correct. I remember at another time, a producer who came to me and he says, look, I'm just telling you about the information that you received, the knowledge you need to check as well. And that depends on your knowledge as an interpreter. I had to read a lot. I have to be knowledgeable in my area. He came to me, this producer, TV producer. He wants to do a program called about Egypt in 1956, and it's about the by-aggression to Egypt, which was tri-aggression. 3 countries attacked Egypt in 1956, and he wanted to do a whole program on the topic, but he's going to call it by-aggression, by 2 countries. And when I asked him what are the 2 countries, he said to me, it's France and Britain. So in other words, he's trying to put forward his own idea, which is like there are 2 countries who attacked Egypt at the time and not 3. Now here it's a ethical problem that I'm facing, because I'm here having to, I learned it was 3 countries who attacked in history, who attacked Egypt, but he's telling me he's going to do a program for 2 countries. So here it's an issue of you have to actually translate what they said or interpret what they said exactly, and that it's 2 countries. Now you leave it to the other party to answer that it is 3 parties and not 2 parties. And it's not up to you to correct what this guy is saying. And this is what usually happens in dialogue, or in discussions or in disputes, where one party is saying something, okay, which you may not agree with, but there's another party who's saying something also else, which also you might not agree with. So they are fighting with each other, and you are in the middle trying to actually pass across the information, that's all, okay, without involving yourself in the dispute itself. And that's very, very important. So that's really important in terms of the ethics here, if we can call that as such. So basically, with regards to the steps we're talking about, you got step 1, which is to listen and be a good listener, and make sure you listen to hear very well. And also you need to understand what you are listening to. Now the third step in interpreting, which is, if we want to slow down, let's say, the process, what's happening, is that your understanding here, in your mind, in your brain. When you hear the idea, now you understand the idea, okay? So the idea becomes in your head, you know what that word, what the idea is. Now you're looking for some words that actually express that idea in another language. And here, of course, if you are interpreting it in your mother tongue, which is what most of the interpreters prefer, you will find lots of words in your head jumping, and you just sort of catch them. It's like you're fishing, if you like. You catch them, all these words, you put them together, and you just pronounce them straight away, and you get rid of, you output the actual concept. And that's really, that's why those who interpret into their mother tongue are actually the best ones, because they have got many vocabulary in their heads. So the vocab in their heads is quite a lot. So that's why the words are jumping in their heads, and they're just picking them up and just putting them into a sentence very quickly, and then giving it in the Arabic language or the target language, which is the output. So that's really how it works in choosing the words in your head. I mean, we're slowing down here the process, okay? But of course, when you are doing it, it comes natural, automatic. It is not consciously done. Okay, you don't consciously interpret. It's like a switch. It's like the light switch. Okay, you switch from English into Arabic, for example. You put the light switch in your head. Okay, and then you know that what's coming in is, let's say, English, and now your head is switching it what's called language switching operation. Language switching operation, which is changing the English into Arabic. And then you just say it in Arabic. The way I did it with my mom, when she was saying in Arabic, I was doing it in English, of course, to the salesman, and the opposite. I can't just say to my mom, if I don't understand anything from my mom, which is the first party, I have to ask and make sure that I understand. Now, of course, if you are in a conference, you can't, but of course, those who are in conference, when they speak, they make sure that they say whatever they mean, what they are saying. So that's very, very important for them. So you are actually doing that. Now, in terms of pronouncing the words and saying the words in another language, and in order to improve, if you are so outputting in English and your English is not the first language, how do you improve that? What you need to do is you need to do the pencil exercise, which is what Daniel from voiceover world. He is very good in voiceovers, and he's got a studio in that. I'm not advertising him, they're here. But I'm just saying that this is his exercise, which is excellent, to make you aware